Shalom and Baraka, URT family. We're glad that you chose to join us today and learn and receive some spiritual knowledge in spirit and in truth of Yahuah and Yahusha. We're excited about all that our Creator Yahuah is doing in us and in the world to bring forth His, and yes, I said His, kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. We hope that you've meditated and are prayed up to be blessed with the spiritual food that you're about to receive for your spirit. So without further ado, let's get started with today's lesson. In today's lesson, we'll be speaking on the topical subject matter of entering or enter through the narrow gate, as spoken of in the scriptural text of Matthew 7:13 and 14, and throughout the biblical text of the Torah and the Masoretic text that we often refer to as the Tanakh or Old Testament, and of course, addressing the text of the Brit Chadashah or New Testament, where Matthew 7:13 and 14 can be found. The straight and narrow gate of Matthew 7:11 through 14, which we're about to read and examine, is often referred to as the golden rule. While the term golden rule is not a biblical term, it is used by many who may or may not believe in the entirety of the Bible as we do. So, straight and narrow gate, Matthew 7:11 through 14, reads as follows. If you then, being evil, know how to give good gifts unto your children, how much more shall your Abba or Father, which is in Shamayim, heaven, give good things to them that ask him? 7:12, therefore all things whatsoever you would that men should do to you, do you even so to them. For this is the Torah, which is law, and the Nevi'im prophets. Enter you in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Be straight, which is narrow or small, is the gate, and narrow, which is difficult, constricted, hard, and narrow, is the way which leads into life, and few there be that find it. So as we just read, the narrow gate is difficult and hard to find, and few go in. One of the main things that I want to bring out in the lesson is that the narrow gate or path begins and ends with our mind. The reason why we're here on earth is to learn of Yahuwah's ways and not our own, so that we can join back with him at the end of his salvation plan. Isaiah 55:8 states it clearly, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, says Yahuah. This is the very essence and reason why he established and conveyed to his people that they must transform, renew, and elevate their mind. This comes through the narrow gate and difficult path to be guided into all truth and understanding, led by the Ruach HaKodesh or Holy Spirit, leaving the mind of the traditions of men. So, as we move forward, let's watch this short video presentation on the subject matter, Matthew 7:13 and 14. So let's jump right in. The video demonstration that we just watched speaks to the bigger picture and demonstrates number comparisons and leaving one way of thinking, understanding, and behavior of the ways of the world of unrighteousness to the thinking, understanding, and obedience of the world of righteousness of Yahuah and Yahusha. So let's talk about this. Narrow is the way to spiritual life. The original Hebrew word for the English word door is Torah, which is the Hebrew concordance 8651, and the less, which is in the Strong's Concordance Hebrew 1817. And the spiritual meaning of door and doorpost is an open door is the communication vehicle to either good and righteousness or bad, evil, and unrighteousness. So you can enter into a door of righteousness or into a door of unrighteousness. Closing of doors is the communication vehicle to cut off communication of good and righteousness or bad, evil, and unrighteousness. So when there's a door closing within the scriptures, either there's a door closing to that which is good and of righteousness or that which is bad of unrighteousness. So let's examine the Hebrew word gate. The original Hebrew word for the English word gate is sha'ar, which is in the Strong's Concordance Hebrew 8179. And the spiritual meaning of gates is an entrance or open-mindedness or controlled access to a walled city, which the spiritual meaning of the word city is typically doctrine, which manifests into the natural of what we know as cities, is the understanding of doctrine, the understanding of the mind. Also, the entranceway to understanding of good and evil, as we can see in the following scriptures in Revelations 22:14. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates into the city. That's the understanding of the gates. The gates are the understanding into the city, which is the city is the doctrine and understanding of who our Creator is. Also in Psalms 24:7, lift up your head, O you gates, and be you lifted up, you everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Again, the gates is the understanding or entranceway to the understanding of these things as the same as the everlasting doors. The everlasting doors is to everlasting righteousness, as what's being stated here, to the everlasting doors. As we look at Matthew 16:18, we see, as I say also unto you, and this is the Mashiach speaking, that you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Of course, the gates of hell is the understanding of hell and all the things that hell encompasses, or Sheol, and a lot of other synonymous words regarding hell. But it's the understanding of hell that shall not prevail against it. So for our external man, when we talk about gates, is where the rulers, principalities, leaders, head of state, and council is given, as well as the individual man that have the understanding of those things that lead to those rulers, principalities, and leaders in high places. For the internal spirit man, where Yahuah's counsel of the celestial and spiritual realm resides, which are righteous, or where the adversary of unrighteousness dwells, that leads man into destruction. So you have, again, righteousness and unrighteousness, and gates can lead to both righteousness and unrighteousness, starting from each and every one of us from an individual perspective, as well as the collective body that now becomes the unrighteousness that dwells upon the earth. And that's the manifestation thereof. So after, further into this lesson, we'll be reviewing a few scriptures demonstrating the use of these words so that you can get a better understanding. All right, so let's take a look at strait, narrow, gate. and the broad and wide gate. Straight and narrow gate is a spiritual mind in the divinity of righteousness in spirit and in truth of our one true creator, Yahuah. The narrow gate is the consciousness and obedience of righteousness through faith in Ruach and in Amet. The consciousness of the narrow gate recognizes evil, wickedness, and untruth and does not partake in it. The truth, which is absolute and is in the spiritual realm of righteousness of our creator, Yahuah, judges all things. So those that take the narrow gate, Yahuah shares his secrets and mysteries with his true prophets. And we find that in Amos 3:7, in the place of safety, awaiting the appointed time of the resurrection of the one body of Yahusha. One must enter the narrow gate through the right door to find understand, and accept, and be obedient to the understanding that takes place at the door in order to be with Abba, the Father, Yahuah, through his son, or Ben, son, Yahusha. All right, so that's the narrow gate. For the broad and wide gate, we have the carnal, natural ways and affections of men leading to the pleasures of the world at the cost of truth and righteousness. The spirit man of unrighteousness follows the broad and wide gate through the external man's thoughts and ideologies and causes the culmination of unrighteousness that always leads to devastation and manifestations of wickedness. So those entering the broad and wide gate have a lower sense of consciousness, thereby being spiritually asleep, sick, and or dead. The broad and wide gate has led to man's demise, along with the various sufferings, torment, pain, and anguish for the chosen and others of Yahuwah's assembly and church. It is for this reason that one must come out of her, as stated in Revelation 18:4, and take the narrow gate in the place of spiritual safety to find the door and enter into the gates of heaven. And we find more scriptural references regarding the gates of heaven in Genesis 28:16-17, Deuteronomy 17:5-7, Psalms 118:19 and 20, Joshua 23:4, 2 Peter 1:11, John 10:1-3, Acts 3:9-10, and many others. All right, so let's talk about the mind. So the definition of mind is the consciousness, element, or process that thinks, reasons, perceives, wills, and judges. There are three components of consciousness that encompasses: 1, superconsciousness; 2, consciousness; and 3, subconsciousness. The mind of superconsciousness is of our creator, Yahuah, while the consciousness and subconscious mind are not of Yahuah, but are of man. It is important to understand the difference of the three components of consciousness, which we will address in the subsequent lesson regarding Yahuwah's mind of righteousness, the three phases of consciousness. So as we've discussed in many of our lessons, what is in a person's mind, which is also their spiritual heart, will, and understanding, is what he or she will follow, understand, and operate, whether it being right or wrong, righteous or righteousness or unrighteousness. And since all mankind has fallen short of Yahuwah's glory, righteousness and glory, man has not been in the divinity and spiritual intelligence of our Creator since the initial fall from grace, landing us in the Garden of Eden. It is from that time forward that man has lost his mind of righteousness and therefore pays the penalties thereof through the plan of salvation to bring us back into Yahuwah's righteousness through the body of Yahusha. Have you ever heard the expression, what's in a person's heart comes out of their mouth? Let's examine the following scriptural passages to understand the mind and mouth of righteousness as well as the contrary. It should bring light to why the scriptures of Titus 1:9-12 says, holding fast the faithful word as he has been taught, that he may be able by sound doctrine both to exhort and to convince the gainsayers. For there are many unruly and vain talkers and deceivers, especially they of the circumcision, whose mouths must be stopped, who subvert whole houses, teaching things which they ought not for filthy lucre's sake. One of themselves, even a prophet of their own, said, the Cretans are always liars, evil beasts, and slow bellies. That says a lot. So some of the scriptural references we're going to read here regarding the mind, heart, and mouth. We'll start with Luke 6:43 through 45, which reads, "For a good tree brings not forth corrupt fruit, neither does a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. For every tree is known by his own fruit. For of the thorns men do not gather figs, nor of a bramble bush gather they grapes. A good man out of the good treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is good, and an evil man out of the evil treasures of his heart bringeth forth that which is evil. For the abundance of the heart his mouth speaks." All right. So again, what starts in the heart comes out of the mouth, individually and collectively. You must understand this to understand what has been transpiring over the period of time of Yahuah's plan of salvation, to understand what's being spoken and what that which is true of righteousness and that which is of unrighteousness, based on his sound doctrine and based on his spiritual time, which we'll discuss a little more in other lessons as well. So Matthew 15:18 through 20 says, "But those things which proceed out of the mouth come forth from the heart, and they defile the man. For out of the heart proceeds evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man, but to eat with unwashed hands defiles not a man." And now we have to understand all of these things regarding what the murders are and what the adulteries and fornications and things of this nature are, which are all defined within the law or the Torah. And it should not have ever been twisted to be anything else. But we know that those things are some of the things that have been twisted for mankind to believe something else other than what Yahuah is saying in his word, in spirit, and in truth. All right, so Matthew 5:2 through 12 states, "And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying," and this is, of course, Mashiach, Yahusha, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see Elohim. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called unto the children of Elohim. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven, for so persecuted they the prophets which were before you." So we have to understand and recognize that the prophets that were before us that he's speaking of, one, there's two different prophets, and we're going to get into that a little bit more as to which prophets are the true prophets of righteousness and those that violate his law, that take people through the broad and wide gate. All right. So again, a few more scriptures regarding the mind. Let's look at Numbers 16:28. And Moses said, hereby you shall know that Yahuah has sent me to do all these works, for I have not done them of mine own mind. 1 Samuel 2:35 says, and I will raise me up a faithful priest that shall do according to that which is in mine heart and in my mind. And I will build him a sure house, and he shall walk before mine anointed forever. And in 1 Chronicles 28:9 we have, and you, Solomon, my son, know you the Elohim of your father, and serve him with a perfect heart and with a willing mind. For Yahuah searches all hearts and understands all the imaginations of the thoughts. If you seek him, he will be found of you. But if you forsake him, he will cast you off forever. Again, willing mind. Nehemiah 4:6 says, so built we the wall, and all the wall was joined together unto the half thereof, for the people had a mind to work. Remember, as we talk about in unsealing and revealing the scriptures, and in reading in the language that we read this in English, after the colon, pretty much explained what happens before the colon. So it's a description of what we're, for the people had a mind to work, explains the wall we built, the wall that was being built and was joined together unto the half thereof. For the people had a mind to work. All right. Jeremiah 32:35 says, and they built the high places of Baal, which are in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to cause their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire unto Molech, which I commanded them not. Neither came it into my mind that they should do this abomination to cause Judah to sin. All right. Ezekiel 11:5 says, and the spirit of Yahuah fell upon me and said unto me, speak. Thus says Yahuah, thus have you said, O house of Israel, for I know the things that come into your mind, every one of them. Ezekiel 23:17 and 18 says, and the Babylonians came to her in the bed of love, and they defiled her with their whoredom as she was polluted with them. And her mind was alienated from them. So she discovered her whoredoms and discovered her nakedness. And now we're going to, the rest of it again explains the first part of that. Then my mind was alienated from her, like as my mind was alienated from her sister. All right. So I want you guys to read, and I just picked some of these scriptural passages out, but it's always good to read all of the context around these scriptural passages to get a better understanding of what's taking place as well. There's no way that, of course, we can go through in a timely manner and read all of the entirety of the scriptural passages for each one of these or the entire chapter. So I want you guys to take that upon yourselves to do that. All right, so a few more scriptures. In Ephesians 4:23, it says, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind. Philippians 2:5 says, let this mind be in you, which was also in Mashiach Yahusha. So what is his mind? His mind is different than your mind, because remember, the Most High's ways are not man's ways. So we have to be of his mind and not your own mind. Luke 8:35 says, then they went out to see what was done and came to Yahusha and found the man out of whom the devils were departed, sitting at the feet of Yahusha, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. So that's something that I want you, definitely, and we're going to be talking about this in other lessons as well, but this definitely sets the tone for you to start to understand all the biblical stories and what was taking place and what has always been taking place, but those things that have been twisted for man to think something differently than what it's actually speaking in reference to. All right. So Colossians 2:18 says, "Let no man beguile you of your reward in a voluntary humility and worshiping of angels, intruding into those things which he has not seen, vainly puffed up by his fleshly mind." 2 Timothy 1:7 says, "For Elohim has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." So hopefully, everybody, you're starting to get the picture and understanding how important it is to be of sound mind and to understanding going from one mind to another, which is one mind is of man, which is of unrighteousness, to a mind of righteousness, which is of our Creator. All right, Romans 1:28 says, "And even as they did not like to retain Elohim in their knowledge is where? In the mind. Elohim gave them over to a reprobate what? Mind, to do those things which are not convenient." Romans 7:23 says, "But I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind, and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin, which is in my members." Mind, captivity, law of sin, which is in my members. Remember that. Romans 12:2, "And be not conformed to this world, but be you transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of Elohim." Matthew 22:37 says, "Yahusha, unto him you shall love Yahuah, your Elohim, with all of your heart and with all of your soul and with all of your mind." All right. So I want us to also discuss, there's a process and a blueprint within the scripture that provides a roadmap to how and when doors and gates are open that lead to the mind of understanding. So we must comprehend that understanding begins at the door and gate. All spiritual language that Yahuah and Yahusha and the prophets of old and new understood is that which is at the door and gate, and that's where the understanding resides. So I'm going to start by talking about the door, which is the communication vehicle that we spoke of earlier, that one must enter into to learn the ways of Yahuah, to better understand his righteousness, and to obtain your salvation, upon obtaining your salvation. All right. So Hosea 2:14 and 15 states, "Therefore, behold, I will allure her and bring her into the wilderness and speak comfortably unto her in the wilderness. And I will give her vineyards from thence, and the valley of Achor for a door of hope. And she shall sing there as in the days of her youth, and as in the day when she came up out of the land of Egypt," which we know that Egypt is the mind of or spirit of mind of bondage. So again, entering into the wilderness, bringing her into the wilderness, providing a door of hope, and to bring her out of the land or mindset of Egypt, which is the spirit of bondage. All right. John 10:1-3. 1-3 says, "Truly, truly, I say unto you, he that enters not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbs up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. But he that enters in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the porter opens, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calleth his own sheep by name and leadeth them out." John 10:7-9 says, Then Yahusha unto them again, truly, truly, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. All that ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved and shall go in and out and find pasture. Luke 13:22-27 says, And he went through the cities and villages, teaching and journeying toward Jerusalem. Then said one unto him, Adonai, are there few that be saved? And he said unto them, Strive to enter in at the strait gate, for many, I say unto you, will seek to enter in and shall not be able. When once the master of the house is risen up and hath shut to the door, and you begin to stand without and to knock at the door, saying, Adonai, Adonai, open unto us. And he shall answer and say unto you, I know you not whence you are. Then shall you begin to say, We have eaten and drunk in your presence, and you have taught us in our streets. But he shall say, I tell you, I know you not whence you are. Depart from me, all you workers of iniquity. So there's a lot to be understood there, and the opening and shutting of the door, as I explained earlier, and we're going to dive into that a little bit more, understanding the door that you are to go in to understand who your creator is. When you go through the wrong door, you will not understand and be following that which is of your true creator, Yahuah and Yahusha. All right? So let's look at this. The door of salvation is through Yahudah or Judah, which is also of Yahusha. And we see through the family name, and we'll start at the top with Yah and Yahu, and Yahuah being the father, Yahusha being the son, Hamashiach, and Yahudah, Jacob's seed, the tribe of Judah, is the door that we must go in to be in the presence of the body of Yahusha. Jacob's seed of Judah, of the tribe of Judah, is the door to Yahusha. And of course, Yahusha is the door and gateway to Yahuah. So we have to understand all of these things and to make sure that we're entering in the right door. If you did not go in the door by way of the tribe of Judah and understanding those things, and we'll be talking about the Judah and who Judah typifies and who are those of the house of Judah, and it's a remnant that comes from the tribe of Judah. That is the door. So it is not everyone that is of the tribe of Judah that you must follow, and that's something that has to be understood as well. All right, but we have to understand these things through sound doctrine and precept upon precept, line upon line. All right. So as we look at the bottom here, as we look at from the modern Hebrew, the letter delay means door, and that is the door that we are to enter in through the name of Yahudah or Judah, that leads us into the body of the entire body of Yahusha, and understanding that Yahusha is the way, truth, and light that comes from the Father. All right. And on the right side here, we're going to read Revelations 3:7-8. And it says, And to the angel of the church of Philadelphia write, These things saith he that is holy, he that is true, he that hath the key of David, he that opens and no man shuts, and shuts and no man opens. I know your works. Behold, I have set before you an open door, and no man can shut it. For you have a little strength and have kept my word and have not denied my name. All right. All right, so let's learn a little bit more about the door here. So Psalms 114:1 says, when Israel went out of Egypt, the house of Jacob from a people of a strange language, Judah was his sanctuary, and Israel his dominion. 1 Chronicles 28:4 says, and this is David speaking, howbeit Yahuah Elohim of Israel chose me before all of the house of my father to be king over Israel forever. For he hath chosen Judah to be the ruler, and of the house of Judah, the house of my father. And among the sons of my father, he liked me to make me king over all Israel. 1 Chronicles 28:5 says, and of all my sons, for Yahuah has given me many sons, he hath chosen Solomon, my son, to sit upon the throne of the kingdom of Yahuah over Israel. 2 Chronicles 12:2-4 states, and it came to pass that in the 50th year of King Rehoboam, Shishak, king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem, because they had transgressed against Yahuah, with 1,200 chariots and 70,000 horsemen. And the people were without number that came with him out of Egypt, and the Lubims, and the Sukians, and the Ethiopians. And he took the fenced cities which pertain to Judah, fenced cities, keep that in mind, what we talked about, what cities are, which pertain to Judah, and came to Jerusalem. All right. 2 Chronicles 13:13-18 states, for Jeroboam caused an ambushment to come about behind them. So they were before Judah, and the ambushment was behind them. That's important to know, that the ambushment was behind them. And when Judah looked back, behold, the battle was before and behind. And they cried unto Yahuah, and the priest sounded with the trumpets. Then the men of Judah gave a shout, and as the men of Judah shouted, it came to pass that Elohim smote Jeroboam and all Israel before Abijah and Judah. And the children of Israel fled before Judah, and Elohim delivered them into their hand. And Abijah and his people slew them with a great slaughter, so there fell down slain of Israel 500,000 chosen men. Thus the children of Israel were brought under at that time, and the children of Judah prevailed, because they relied upon Yahuah, Elohim of their fathers. So as we see in Psalms 114:2, Judah is the sanctuary, is Yahuah's sanctuary, and has dominion over all of Israel. Additional evidence of this is in Chronicles 28:4, as David, king of Israel, is of the chosen tribe of Judah to be ruler over Judah and over all of Israel. In 2 Chronicles 13:8, we see that the children of Israel were brought under, and Judah prevailed, or was triumphant, and is triumphant, and overcame as they relied upon Yahuah Elohim of their fathers. All right. Spiritual consciousness and wokeness begins at the door. We hear the term wokeness, and there are a lot of people speaking about this because of the time where we are in time, and some people may not understand the full counsel of the Most High's timing, but they do have a sense and understanding that we are at a time where we've never been before, and some of them are experiencing the Ruach HaKodesh speaking to them in different manners. So they understand that there is a wokeness and a spiritual awakening that's occurring. So with that spiritual consciousness beginning at the door. Let's look at Romans 12:2, and it says, "And be not conformed to this world, but be you transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of Elohim." So it's important to fully comprehend when we are transformed with the renewing of our mind, we have a different understanding than we had previously, which is why we needed to be transformed, because Yahuwah's ways are not man's ways. By doing this, we can prove what that is good and acceptable and perfect will of Elohim. All right, so let's examine the following scriptural text that corroborates, this very statement. In Psalms 14:2-3, we see Yahuwah looked down from the heaven upon the children of men to see if there were any that did understand and seek Elohim. They are all gone aside. They are all together become filthy. There is none that does good, no, not one. Proverbs 3:5-6 says, "Trust in Yahuwah with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path." That understanding is by going in the right gate and in the right door and gate. Nehemiah 8:2-3 says, "And Ezra the priest brought the law before the congregation, both of men and women, and all that could hear with understanding upon the first day of the 7th month. And he read therein before the street that was before the water gate from the morning until midday, before the men and the women and those that could understand. And the ears of all of the people were attentive unto the book of the law or Torah." All right. Isaiah 55:6-9 says, "Seek you Yahuwah while he may be found, call upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. And let him return unto Yahuwah, and he will have mercy upon them, and to our Elohim, for he will abundantly pardon. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, says Yahuwah. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." Again, the mind and consciousness, his thoughts are higher than our thoughts, man's thoughts. So we have to renew our minds, that which is of him, to be at a higher level of consciousness. All right, Ephesians 3:3-4. "How that by revelation he made known unto me the mystery, as I wrote before in a few words, whereby when you read, you may understand my knowledge in the mystery of Mashiach." Now, we know that many people, they've come forth with doctrine and with teachings where their son or Messiah is not a mystery, and they've made things with graven images and a host of other things, while at the same time, they don't understand that unto them, he is still a mystery because you're serving the wrong creator and through the wrong son, something that doesn't exist, which is a totally different lesson. But we need to make sure that we understand what the scriptures are saying here, that you may understand my knowledge in the mystery of Mashiach. Remember, he's Aleph and Tef. He's in the beginning and the end. So there are other people that came in between and taught you things that weren't of your creator. All right? Again, precept upon precept, line upon line, we have to understand all of these things. So spiritual consciousness and wokeness, again, beginning at the door and gate, Isaiah 43:10, "You are my witness, says Yahuwah, and my servant whom I have chosen, that you may know and believe me and understand that I am he. Before me there was no Elohim formed, neither shall there be after me." Daniel 9:13 says, as it is written in the law of Moses, all this evil is come upon us, yet made we not our prayer before Yahuah our Elohim, that we may turn from our iniquities and understand thy truth. Without understanding, you have nothing. That's why Proverbs 4:7, states what it states regarding with wisdom in all you're getting, get understanding. Without understanding, you can't find him. Without faith, you won't know him. So we have to keep all of these things precept upon precept, line upon line. When we take out any of these principles and precepts, we now have nullified the word of our Creator. So any doctrine that's taking out and not building their foundation precept upon precept, they are not able to serve the one and only true Creator, which is Yahuah and Yahusha. All right. Proverbs 4:1-7 said, hear, you children, the instruction of a father, and attend to no understanding. For I give you good doctrine, forsake you not my law. For I was my father's son, tender and only beloved in the sight of my mother. He taught me also and said unto me, let your heart retain my words, keep my commandments and live. Get wisdom, get understanding, forget it not, neither decline from the words of my mouth. Forsake her not, and she shall preserve you. Love her, and she shall keep you. Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all you're getting, get understanding. All right? Matthew 13:13-16 says, therefore speak I to them in parables, because they seeing see not, and hearing they hear not, neither do they understand. And in them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah, which says, by hearing you shall hear and shall not understand, and seeing you shall see and shall not perceive. So if they don't understand and they don't perceive, they can't see and understand who our Creator is. So what is it that they're seeing? As we spoke about earlier, they can see with their natural eyes, they can see and hear with their natural ears, but they do not understand and see who their Creator is in spirit and in truth. For this people's heart is waxed gross, and their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes they have closed, which is their understanding, lest at any time they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears, and should understand with their heart, and should be converted, and I should heal them. But blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. Now, when we get to Matthew 13:16, blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear, is because you've taken the narrow gate. It's because you understand something that the rest of the world does not understand at this time. That's the narrow gate. You're the unpopular. Where the masses, the popular, knows something else. They've taken another gate. All right, so we have to make sure that we understand all of these things, because as we read earlier, when you're being persecuted for his name's sake, is going through the narrow gate. It's being unpopular. It's defending and being an ally for Yahuah and Yahusha, which is what the rest of the world is not at this time at all, until the time of reckoning and then ushering in the kingdom on earth, when others begin to come in as he pours his spirit out. All right. So again, transforming and renewing of the mind begins at the door and gate. In 1 Corinthians 2:12-15 says, now we have received not the spirit of the world, but the spirit which is of Elohim, that we might know the things that are freely given to us of Elohim, which things also we speak, not in words which man's wisdom teaches, but which the Ruach HaKodesh, or Holy Spirit, teaches, comparing spiritual things with spiritual. But the natural man receives not the things of the Spirit of Elohim, for they are foolish unto him. Neither can they know them, because they are spiritually discerned. But he that is spiritual judges all things, yet he himself is judged of no man. So we can see via Yahuah's text, it leads us to having a spiritual mind over matter, as he does when one crosses over from the spirit of the world into the spirit of Yahuah. We will begin to address this in more detail in the topical lesson, Mind Over Matter, Yahuah's spiritual mind, spirit, and his manifestations. So look for this in the upcoming lessons, as it's a doozy and will definitely blow your mind. Okay, so a few other scriptures: spiritual consciousness in the Ruach HaKodesh. John 14:15-18 says, if you love me, keep my commandments, and I will pray the Father, and he shall give you another comforter, that he may abide with you forever. Even the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it sees him not, neither knows him, but you know him, for he dwells with you and shall be in you. I will not leave you comfortless, I will come to you. So again, as we read the text, we have to understand always that the Most High is speaking to various different audiences at various different times. And that's what's so great about this word, is the living word, is understanding that people are at different places in their spiritual journey and walk, which is how it was in times past as well. So he wrote this, with these two worlds colliding, of righteousness and unrighteousness, for people to come out of her and unto him. And we must understand that. So that's why the challenge before us has always been that for the remnant, that people mock and scoff and think that someone's crazy because of that which they speak and they do not hear or understand. They follow that broad and wide gate and have a totally different understanding at that particular time in their spiritual walk and journey. All right. John 14:24-26 says, he that loves me not keeps not my sayings. Let me say that again. He that loves me not keeps not my sayings. And the word which you hear is not mine, but the Father's which sent me. These things have I spoken unto you, being yet present with you. But the Comforter, which is the Ruach HaKodesh, or Holy Ghost, whom the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things and bring all things to your remembrance whatsoever I have said unto you. Again, so just to reiterate, Romans 12:2, and be not conformed to this world, but be you transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of Elohim. So something noteworthy to mention here is that one must know how to recognize the different ruachs and spirits, as there are many spirits that are not the Ruach HaKodesh, or Holy Spirit. We teach exactly what the scriptures declare regarding what the Ruach HaKodesh is and what it isn't in other lessons, as it's important to understand what Ruach is speaking to you and how to discern and recognize those spirits to govern yourself accordingly for the sake of righteousness. It's also important to mention that the Ruach HaKodesh, our comforter and spirit, our comforter and spirit of truth, requires the transformation and renewing of the mind, which is why we reiterate Romans 12:2, which occurs through the spiritual baptism into all truth and righteousness. So to ensure that we understand the purpose of the mind transformation and renewal unto righteousness, which can only come from the superconscious mind of our Creator, Yahuah, is for the regeneration of man, to awaken into spiritual consciousness. All right. So a few scriptural references, as we talked about the door in mind, let's talk about the gates. In Jeremiah 7:1 through 7 says, the word that came to Yirmiyahu or Jeremiah from Yahuah saying, stand in the gate of Yahuwah's house and proclaim there this word and say, hear the word of Yahuwah, all you of Yahudah, Judah, that enter in at these gates to worship Yahuwah. Thus says Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Yasharal, King of Israel, amend your ways and your doings, and I will cause you to dwell in this place. Trust you not in the lying words, saying the temple of Yahuwah, the temple of Yahuwah, the temple of Yahuwah are these. And of course, in the scriptures of the King James of the Bibles that are not with this restored name says, I believe, the temple of the Lord, or something of that nature. But we know it as, of course, we don't discuss that. We don't replace the word as they did with the proxies or the substitution name for any God to be in that name. So we have to understand that. All right. So Jeremiah 7:5 says, for if you thoroughly amend your ways and doings and your doings, if you thoroughly execute judgment between a man and his neighbor, if you oppress not the stranger, the fatherless and the widow, and shed not innocent blood in this place, neither walk after other gods to your hurt. Then will I cause you to dwell in this place, in the land that I gave to your fathers forever and ever. Deuteronomy 16:18 through 20 says, judges and officers shall you make you in all your gates, which Yahuwah your Elohim gives you throughout your tribes, and they shall judge the people with just judgment. You shall not wrest judgment, you shall not respect persons, neither take a gift. For a gift blinds the eyes and understandings of the wise and perverts the words of the righteous. That which is altogether just shall you follow, that you may live and inherit the land which Yahuwah your Elohim gives you. Psalms 118:19 and 20 says, open to me the gates of righteousness, and I will go into them, and I will praise Yahuwah. This gate of Yahuwah into which the righteous shall enter. Those are the gates of understanding who your creator is, so that you can praise him. All right? So a few more scriptural references for gate. Deuteronomy 21:18 through 21 says, and if a man have a stubborn and rebellious son, which will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and that when they have chastened him, will not hearken unto them, then shall his father and his mother lay hold on him and bring him out unto the elders of the city and unto the gate of his place. And they shall say unto the elders of his city, this our son is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. And all the men of the city shall stone him with stones, that he die. So shall you put evil away from among you, and all Israel shall hear and fear. Now, we know that many have taken, these scriptural texts literally, when that is not who our creator is, according to John 4:23 and 24, that he's a spirit and we must worship him in spirit and in truth. So the spiritual language it has one meaning, while the natural language or literal language has another. And we know that man goes by that which is carnal and natural, and that's why we have the wars of this world. That's why we have people stoning each other with physical stones that have transpired in times past up until times present, and all of the things that they misunderstood. It's important to note again that this is all set in motion for the plan of salvation for all of our evil doing. So that's why the Most High allowed all of these things to take place for the evil to be purified, to come out of, for us to be purified and to come out of the evil and wicked ways. He allowed the Gentiles and the Jews of old to do the evil things that they've done to bring us to a point where we can now see and understand him and his righteousness so that we would never go back down that path again. All right. Psalms 24:7 says, lift up your heads, O you gates, and be you lifted up, you everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Again, the gates is to the understanding and everlasting doors. Psalms 104 says, enter into his gates, understanding, with thanksgiving, into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him and bless his name. Psalms 147:13 says, for he has strengthened the bars of your gates, your understanding. He has blessed your children within you. When you enter into the right gates, you have a different understanding. Now he can bless you and your children. Isaiah 26:2 says, open you the gates, that the righteous nation which keep the truth may enter in. So the gates that the righteous nation which keeps the truth may enter in. So that gives even more context. That keeps the truth may enter in. All right. So the gates, again, in spirit and in truth, where he is, where he can be found, those are the gates that are going to be open, that the righteous nations will keep the truth that can enter in. Isaiah 60:10 says, and the sons of the stranger shall build up your walls, and their kings shall minister unto you, for in my wrath I smote you, but in my favor have I had mercy on you. Therefore your gates shall be open continually. They shall not be shut day nor night, that men may bring unto you the forces of the Gentiles, that their kings may be brought. Ezekiel 48:31-33 says, and the gates of the city shall be after the names of the tribes of Israel. 3 gates northward, 1 gate of Reuben, 1 gate of Judah, 1 gate of Levi. And the east side 4,500, and 3 gates, and 1 gate of Joseph, 1 gate of Benjamin, 1 gate of Dan. And the south side 4,500 measures, and 3 gates, 1 gate of Simon, 1 gate of Issachar, 1 gate of Zebulun. All right. This is important, again, to understand and to begin to break down these gates according to the tribes and the understandings. But we also have to understand, again, precept upon precept, line upon line, entering into the door of what we spoke of, which is the door of Judah, into the body, which is now the rest of the 12 tribes. All right? Keep those things in mind. All right, so the pearly gates, let's talk about the pearly gates. Revelations 21:21-7 says, and the 12 gates were 12 pearls. Every several gate was of 1 pearl. And the street of the city was pure gold, as it were transparent glass. And I saw no temple therein, for the Most High, Elohim, and the Lamb are the temple of it. And the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon, to shine in it, for the glory of Elohim did lighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof. And the nations of them which are saved shall walk in the light of it, and the kings of the earth do bring their glory and honor to it. And the gates of it shall not be shut at all by day, for there shall be no night there. And they shall bring glory and honor of the nations into it. and there shall in no wise enter into anything that defiles, neither whatsoever worketh abomination or makes a lie, but they which are written in the Lamb's book of life. So I want you to just take a look at this. As we talk about, many will enter therein in the wide gate, and understanding all the things that are within the wide gate, and why we must come out and take the broad gate. All right, so within the wide gate, we have many languages, religions, and belief systems. We have false prophets, graven images, man's celebrations and holidays, paganism, a tree that bears rotten fruit. We have the division, hatred, bias, the wars, inequity, social injustice, all of this that leads to the destruction in the day of judgment. We have other gods with those graven images, and we have the false doctrine, which is the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which is why we must come out of her. All right? When we come out of her, we take the path of the narrow gate, which Judah is the door, and we know through that the Most High is Aleph or Omega, first and beginning, speaking the one spiritual language, which is the language of truth and righteousness, by adhering to the true prophets of old and new, having no graven images, because we're spiritual beings, understanding and knowing and keeping the two greatest commandments, as we often speak about. We keep the holy feast days, understanding when those holy feast days will come about, learning those things, and also having the fruits of the Spirit, of His Spirit, in unity, love, equality, oneness, togetherness, all to be in the kingdom on earth as it is in heaven, so that we can make it back to Him in paradise. All right. So, one of the things that I have noted here as well is, have you seen pictures, statues, and images of the professed Son, graven images? You can only see and understand the Son, Yahusha, as you would the Father, in spirit and in truth. So when we're looking at statues and graven images and pictures and stained glass windows, they put that there in your face and in your mind to facilitate their evil deeds that were done by the forefathers, that we have to forgive are those that have trespassed against us. We are not to come against them. This was for us to have to endure to make our way back to Him. So I want to make that very clear, because I know that there's various understandings that people want revenge. The revenge and vengeance is the Most High's and not ours. And trust me, He has had His vengeance, and it will have His vengeance on each and every one of His tribes here. Okay? So we have to understand that and leave it all to Him and fight the battle of His through His word and through His word only. Okay? So there are no physical swords involved here. The sword is the word of the Most High. That's the word that we use to fight the battle, and understanding who He is and who He is in us. All right? All right. So in conclusion, what we've learned in this first part, we learned that the mind is of great significance to understanding and obedience, and therefore must be renewed unto righteousness. We learned in Matthew 7, 11 through 14, I have 12 to 14, speaks of the difficulties of the straight and narrow gate that leads to spiritual life that few will find, while the broad and wide gate, which many follow, leads to destruction of the people. We viewed the spiritual video demonstration depicting a natural manifestation representation to demonstrate numbers going through the different, the two different gates. All right. We understand from Isaiah 55, 6 through 9, that Yahuah's ways are not man's ways, which is the world's ways, and His thoughts are not man's thoughts. This requires that man must transform his mind and heart and forsake his spiritual wicked ways for the world and unrighteousness. We also learned that we must understand the mystery of Mashiach, Yahusha, and Yahuah through reading and studying the undefiled and unadulterated word and renewing our mind with their righteousness as stated in Ephesians 3:3-4 and Romans 12:2, and not lean to our own understanding and acknowledge him in all of our ways that he may direct our path, as stated in Proverbs 3:5-6. We also learned and talked about spiritual consciousness and wokeness begins at the door and gate, transforming and renewing of the mind unto Yahuah and Yahusha's righteousness for their name's sake. We learned that the word Hebrew sha'ar, which is transliterated to the English word gate. We also learned the spiritual meaning of the word sha'ar and gate to mean entrance and open-mindedness to receive and have controlled access to a walled city or doctrine. When we receive the spirit of Yahuah and Yahusha, the Ruach HaKodesh teaches spiritual matters, comparing spiritual things with spiritual, and he that is spiritual judges all things, as stated in 1 Corinthians 12:2. We also discussed Yahudah or Judah is the door to salvation and the door to the gates of understanding the ways of Yahuah through his only begotten son, Yahusha. Yahudah and Judah is Yahuah's sanctuary and Israel his dominion. King David was a chosen ruler from the house of Judah, and likewise the son of David, Yahusha, of the same spirit, is also the same house of Yahudah or Judah. All right. So we also learned that the broad and wide gate are there many languages, religions, and belief systems, the false prophets, graven images for idolatry, paganism, man's self-glorified celebrations and holidays, and a tree that bears rotten fruit, division, hatred, biases, wars, inequity, and social injustice that leads to the destruction and Yahuwah's day of judgment and reckoning. All right. So I want you to be sure to continue with part 2 of this lesson. And some of the things that we'll be discussing in part 2 is expanding upon the intricacies of the narrow gate and the broad and wide gate, understanding the meaning and purpose of the gatekeepers, porters, watchmen, and shepherds and their responsibilities. Yahuah and Yahusha controls and opens and shuts the gate. The narrow gate and broad and wide gate comparison. We're going to go over that, and also have a conclusion to all of this for part 1 and part 2 of entering into the narrow gate. All right. So renewing of the mind, by going through the narrow gate means that one no longer thinks, believes, or trusts in the ways of the world of man, and that all that man has instituted for himself, for self-exaltation and self-glorification, and a heart of mind of individuality and not the collective body. So the narrow gate is spiritual truths of Yahuah and righteousness for all of mankind through love, charity, grace, mercy for his name's sake. And it's often difficult for many to conceptualize the ways of our Creator, as the indoctrinations and traditions of men have seared the minds like hot irons. This often causes for people to not stand at or try to enter the narrow gate, as it takes mind renewal and transformation through the learning and obedience of the unfamiliar territory of Yahuwah's ways, which are not man's ways. So we have to understand all of these things that has been a part of this ongoing spiritual warfare from our time here on earth. And of course, it started before our natural time here, but with our forefathers, and since the Most High has instituted his plan of salvation for mankind for us to make our way back to him. All right. So this concludes the first part of the lesson through the narrow gate, or entered through the narrow gate. And I want to thank all of you for joining us, and we hope that the information shared is enlightening and assisting your spiritual journey with knowing and being obedient unto the righteousness of our Creator, Yahuah. Please be sure to take part of the second part of this lesson. And shalom and baraka. Be blessed.